future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hey, greetings and salutations, everyone. I am your host, Walt Lusk, and you're tuned into, yes, the Dr. Judy WTF show. And don't get ahead of me. WTF stands for What the Freud. Judy is busy with the patient, so I'm going to start, and she'll be here in a few minutes, so you're stuck just with me. Tonight's show is entitled It's Your Life Partner, meaning it's your life partner. And we're going to be talking about how to choose a life partner. Last week, we talked about emotional bullying, and over half of folks, statistics say, are emotionally bullied at work, let alone at home. So check out that show. But before Judy waltzes in here, I've got a testimonial that just came in on Yelp that I wanted to share with you before, because she's not going to read it. And this is from a guy who actually called in the show. Actually called the show. He found the show and listened to it and spent 10 sessions, just 10, folks, with her, and this was his testimonial, word for word. I just completed Dr. Judy's 10-session mind map matrix over the phone with her and have taken my self-help journey to an entirely new level. About a year ago, I realized that I was stuck and I needed to take massive action. I spent over $100,000 attending 17 conferences around the world and felt like a bigger failure because of my expectations, and knowledge grew because I was still stuck. The behavioral and cognitive principles didn't reach down to where my wounds were because they were on a sub-linguistic level. Dr. Judy's map created a cognitive track to have an emotional healing in a short amount of time, letting the darkness out and putting much more light in. The limitation of self-help is that the problem of, quote, healing from human disconnect is that if the problem is healing from human disconnect, the answer has to be human connection. This cannot be done alone. Dr. Judy acts as a psychological detective, objectively identifying the source of the wound, and as a surrogate parent to repair the cause and the damage. Now that I've worked with her, I don't feel the, quote, hook to get upset and defend myself when others try and manipulate me. My psychological skin is healthy now, so I am not afraid to face the challenges of life. I highly recommend her work to anyone who feels self-sabotaged or stuck. Now, you have to remember, folks, this was all done on the phone. And so if you can hear this voice in your United States, you have nothing to lose, because this show is sponsored by the Psychological Healing Center, and you can go to psych, P-S-Y-H, no,
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Hi, Judy. Welcome.
Hi.
You can go to
How
Dr.
are
Judy,
you? I'm hooking that site up soon. It's not
It's a
hooked
preview
in
of coming
yet.
attractions. You can go to www.drjudywtf.com and find the link. And, get your mind map and change your life. So remember, the title of this show is It's Your Life Partner. It's Your Life Partner. And the goal of the show here really is to help you think like a shrink. It's a call-in show, so if you want to think like a shrink or talk to a shrink, you can do that. The number is area code 323-843-2826. That's 323-843-2826. We're here every Thursday live at 8 o'clock. And if you're listening to this, you can pull us on Stitcher and iTunes. And later in the show, we will do our Shrink That Tune and teach you how to think like a shrink. So welcome to the studio, Dr. Judy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I had to mind map my way over here, by the way. It was quite an ordeal. I want to thank the person who posted that on my Yelp review from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
And I do love my work, and I do love uncovering the wounds and leading people through a process that actually helps them to express the repress and therefore clean the wound and be able to flow past it and into life and really recode themselves. Because a lot of what I talk about in this mind map process, and for those of you who have never heard of a mind map, Walt, could you please put it up there on the
and
screen?
again, if you're just listening, you can go to www.drjudywtf.com. And, as far as the testimony is concerned, we just had to really give a big heartfelt applause for that. So thank you. And the mind map, where be it? Here it is.
So just a little bit of a background on the mind map. I created that as a Unity project back in 2001 out of a conversation with a friend. And the goal of the mind map was to take our fractured humanity and find a system to create an interconnected humanity. And at the time it was called Join the Human Race. And I want to just add another letter to that, Join the Humane Race, because we're all human. I understand that. But not all of us behave in a humane way.
I was going to say, many of us, especially in light of what's going on in the news today, do not act in a humane way.
Yes,
it's getting scary.
So I decided to take it from the macro level down to the micro level and heal human disconnect and go from the inside out. And I will be back on the project of healing global disconnect after I finish my book, which I will.
It's entitled Healing Human Disconnect.
Good title for what I do.
It's a great title.
And so today we're going to be talking about choosing a partner, because one of the things that I notice in my practice is that an overlooked wound is the fact that people are really, really unconsciously, because they don't really think this way, they're really angry at the partner that their parents chose, whether they're angry at their mother because they chose a father who beats them, or they chose a father, or the father chose a mother who abandons their children. It's really, really essential that when making a choice, particularly when children are involved, that you pick your partner really, really carefully. Because as I was saying to one of my patients today, if you pick a person that doesn't have the emotional capacity to be healthy and will then project their anger onto their children, you're basically inviting danger into your home. You're basically inviting danger into your womb, aren't you? That's now going to manifest as a child. And so therefore, the system does count, and a big part of the system.
It truly does. And can I expand on that really quick? Because this article this guy wrote is just, it's mind-boggling.
Okay.
And for those of us that are a little younger, okay, when you choose a life partner, you're choosing a lot of things, including your parenting partner and someone who will deeply influence your children. Mm-hmm. But you're also choosing your companion for about 20,000 meals.
Wow, 20,000 meals.
Yes, yeah, you're going to eat with them, right,
Mm-hmm.
about 20,000 times. Mm-hmm. Your travel companion for about 100 different vacations, right? If you marry when you're, 20, 25, and you separate and pass when you're 75, that's 50 years, right? So that's 2 trips a year, plus or minus, right?
20,000 meals.
Yeah, 20,000 meals.
Never looked at it like
your
that.
I know. Mm-hmm. Your primary leisure time and retirement friend, mm-hmm. your career therapist, and someone whose day you'll hear about at least about maybe 18,000 times. I just thought that perspective was really the crack
That's
up.
a great perspective. And think about it, too, that the person that you're lying next to has an extreme influence on your mental health, right?
Absolutely it does, because it's your life partner.
An understatement. And so if the person is angry, if the person's depressed, if the person is anxious, if the person is mean, we're not the healthiest of species. We all experience anger and anxiety, and I'm talking about different levels of at some point in our lives, but I'm talking about people who don't get help, because we are not the cause of part one of our lives. However, we are the cause of healing the damage that was done to us so that we don't project it onto other people. And that's what I'm talking about here, is that when you choose a partner into your life, whether it be a marital partner or a lover or a best friend, or even who you're hanging out with as family members, or even a business partner, then you really have to make sure that certain elements are in place, or else.
Or else.
Or else.
Yeah,
You're going to cause a lot of chaos.
It's going to cause mass quantities of chaos.
Right.
And again, you can't go into a relationship with baggage. There's another article. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. But you know what? Does the person bring out the best in you? Okay? Think about that. Do they complement and compromise you, or do they compete, compare, and control? Okay? That's a big one. Those 5 C's, right? Complement and compare versus compete, compare, and control. What do they bring to the relationship, right? This isn't what you bring. You're you, right?
Right.
And do you bring past relationships, past hurts, past mistrust, and past pain, which is, of course, a gob of baggage, all right? You can't do
Right.
that. And here's the line. You cannot take someone to the altar to alter them.
Wow, I
How
like
about that? Okay.
Well
All right.
said.
Yeah. Okay. You
It's
cannot.
as is.
Yes, indeed. You can't
It's
change
as
them.
is.
It's
However,
as is.
I still have to say that a relationship is meant to be a growth relationship.
is.
So
Yes,
even though
it is.
people marry as is, I think it's still upon the people to grow together. So if you want to have a stagnant relationship and just have it as is, then it's as is. And I don't think that that's always that sustainable, because if someone in the relationship isn't, as I call it, a semi-permeable membrane, soaking in new information and growing spiritually, intellectually, creatively, health-wise, if they're not expanding as a human being, then really what's going to happen is that they're going to suck the life out of each other. And
Well,
it's going to be a closed system,
gonna
and
be very
closed systems.
vampire-ish.
It's very vampires. We've talked about vampiring. And so if one brings a lot of light into the relationship and the other one doesn't have a lot of light, then what's going to happen is this imbalance. And the one that has a lot of light could possibly be sucked dry to the point where they just feel that they're giving and giving and giving, and the other is taking and taking and taking. And that's not a relationship that's going to sail. I mean, that's going to be a ship that's going to sink.
And if you look at the numbers, at best, 50% of anybody that gets married ends up in divorce. And if you remarry the second time, the statistics are higher. Okay, so.
And if you remarry the same person the second time, what happens then, Walt?
Remember, you can't take someone to the altar to alter them. You can't make someone love you or make someone stay.
So let's talk about the characteristics to look for.
Okay, well, we can do
Okay.
that. There was one other thing I wanted to touch on. And what's interesting is those of you who are single, this was really an interesting, very, very refreshing perspective. Those of you who are single, you're literally one step away from finding your life partner, right? Tomorrow you can meet him,
Right.
right? I mean, if you're doing speed dating or you're on the internet and you're dating, 2 or 3 people a week, it's a numbers game in that respect, and you're going to find them, right? You got to be hopeful and have an air of expectation, anticipation. But the other way is if you're in a relationship and you go, this isn't working, I gotta make a change. You got 3 steps to get to that one. Okay, I know this is a little bit logical, but this is from the same guy. So one, you have to realize you're in a unhappy relationship, and you got to go through the whole hassle and headache and heartache of breaking up. Then you got to recover from that breakup, right? Because you just can't jump out and go rebounding, right? Then
You could, but it doesn't work.
and
usually.
then you're in the position to find a relationship. So those of you who are single, going, oh my gosh, I don't want to be single. It's easier than being in a lousy, horrible relationship. And the thing is that society has this all wrong and gives us terrible advice, as this article goes, and you can chime in. In other words, it encourages us to stay uneducated and let romance be our guide.
Well, romance is a short-lived, not for all. Okay, some people feel in love for their entire relationship, whatever that means to the person. I guess.
Well, there's in love and in like.
And so what the research is showing is that when people fall in love, it's a temporary state of psychosis, meaning that if all you have is an in-love feeling and you don't have behind it character, communication, a sense of commitment, a sense of shared values, a sense of Well, taking out the deal breakers. I remember speaking to a couple who was a couple for a short while until one discovered that one wants to have children and the other one doesn't want to have
there
children.
you
So that's
go.
a deal breaker.
Yeah, it is.
So you've got to understand that if you're going to enter into a relationship, whatever it is, whatever kind of relationship, it has to be a sustainable one. The deal breakers can't be in that formula. And if you don't have, just like with childhood, right? What's the most important stage of development? Stage number 1 is trust. There's a stage called trust versus mistrust. If you don't have trust in your relationship from the get-go, I don't know where that's going to go. And if you don't have trust within the relationship, that doesn't mean you have to dump the relationship. That could mean that you're repeating some bad cycle, that you're playing out in I call it a what the Freud manner, okay? The loopity loop of repeat, because now you're merging with somebody that you're playing a bad family pattern out with. Doesn't mean you have to leave the relationship, but it does mean that you have to get conscious of what you're doing so that you can really break the pattern of what you're doing and shift into something that's not going to speak to the playing out of the wounds of the past. That was a long sentence, wasn't it?
That was incredibly
Did you
long.
understand that, Walt?
I did, and so
That's incredible. I hope you guys understood
to
what I just
summarize
said.
it from a biological perspective, what happens is our bodies are chemically designed to get us to find a mate, which is lust.
Mm-hmm.
Then we fall in love, which is the honeymoon phase. Then we commit to the long run, which is the attachment phase.
Yes.
And, I mean, for example, if you're 35 years old and you're still single, it's like, holy cow, my biological clock is ticking, ticking, ticking. Again, that's society saying, you know what? You're still single at 35? What's the matter with you?
And it's
Okay.
also speaking to nature, because our eggs are only good for so long, and after a certain period of time, it's actually not recommended that a woman conceive or conceive under very, very strong supervised medical care. So it kind of follows nature. And then another element is that when we make love to a human being, what happens is that the bonding drugs, the oxytocin, the bonding drugs start kicking in. And especially for the women who are listening, if you choose to sleep with a man, just understand that your bonding drug, your oxytocin, and then all the dopamine and serotonin and all the neurotransmitters that are released around that is actually going to get you addicted to that person.
I heard it interesting. I was talking to a lady friend of mine today, and she said that she's reading something from a therapist that, you know, before a woman sleeps with a guy, they're sort of in the analyzing phase, right? And they're checking him out. Is he this? Is he that? And we're going to go through 6 things here in a moment. But once you guys have had sex and made love, they're in the justifying phase.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
I like
think
that.
about that. Yeah,
Yes.
I was like, whoa. Okay,
Well,
so you've gone from, like, you know, having a step back to being in, and now justifying whatever flaws and challenges and quirks that your partner has.
You know, and that's so because now it's kicked into that addiction. It's chemical. It's a chemical bonding. So you really want to hear that person's voice. You want to smell that person. You want to feel that person literally under your skin. And so it's that kind of an addiction. And so if the person then shows up with bad character, really bad habits, lacks integrity, and so on and so on and so on, then you go into the justifying phase because you don't want to go through that withdrawal. Okay, so even then, the relationship doesn't necessarily have to be over. It can mean that you're going to get conscious now and work your butt off to get it right, because if you don't get it right in this relationship, chances are that you won't get it right in the next relationship unless there's a real deal breaker involved.
And one thing that I've learned in relationships is everybody gets this, and I've even asked friends, it's like, if you look at a relationship, you know, is it a 50-50 deal? And it's like, well, yeah, it's a 50-50 deal. No, it is not. You put in 50% and your partner puts in 50%. Where's the other 50%? It's got to be 100-100.
Yes.
You know, so again, if you've got issues and challenges, and most relationships do, if you're in it and you're giving it your all and they're in it and giving their all, 100, 100, then you've got a fighting chance. But if it's 50-50, there is no chance.
And a lot has been talked about, especially we had Dr. Stan Tatkin, who is the author
Wired
of
for Love.
Right, wonderful book, and he talks
Great
about
book.
the fact that we are wired for love,
We are.
and that it doesn't necessarily take two completely healthy people to be in a healthy relationship. And one of my patients actually put it very well. He said, well, you can have two unhealthy people and know how to have a healthy relationship, or you can have two very healthy people who don't know how to have a healthy relationship. And that kind of made sense to me.
Well, define healthy.
Because if two people, let's say they just don't have the skills. They don't know how. They don't know how to have what I call peaceful healing dialogues, which is one of the techniques that I created so that people
PhD.
can bridge, right, a PhD, peaceful healing dialogue, which means that we're going to have a whole episode on peaceful healing dialogue.
Yes,
It's
we
that
definitely
important.
are. And again, we've mentioned this before, if you want a copy of the one-page that actually Judy and I worked on it originally, the Peaceful Healing Dialogue, it's extremely helpful if you want to sit down with your partner and say, hey, we're going to have a chat and how to do it. So you can just email us at info at drjudywtf.com.
Right, or if you want to go to www.drjudywtf, I'll get it at my, you can go to my website and email me through there too, either way.
They're linked, Judy.
Oh, thank you, Walt.
Yeah, it's all the same.
I'm not a techno geek. Did you guys notice?
It's all the same.
I don't even know if I'm in front of the right camera. How's that?
You sound great.
Thanks, Walt. Thank you.
But though men and women may seek several similar traits in a partner, research has demonstrated that each gender focuses on different qualities. Men typically want a relationship that allows autonomy, and while women, as we've chatted about here, look for a sense of connection.
Yes, and did you know that women speak a lot more than men do? I was just talking
I'm just
about
nodding
that
my
with
head.
somebody about that the words that come out of a woman's mouth are much more than the words that come out of a man's mouth. So,
That's true.
you know,
We
it's
grunt a
again
lot.
back to men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and
Yes.
somehow we have
Yes.
to bridge that
Yes.
gap, and we have to learn to respect each other. Men have to learn how to cherish their women more. We have to learn how to respect and cherish our partners more, because if we don't put in the effort that we first put into the relationship, then that relationship is going to die. We have to feed that relationship constantly. It's not going to live. You know, if you marry somebody and you wined and dined them and the person massaged you and just, listened to you and connected with you, and then 2 years into the game, you're just not bringing it,
Well,
it's going to die.
we guys are very physical and we're very visual. So seriously, if you want to really be in a position to devour and ravage your spouse, you got to cherish her first.
Mm-hmm. Right. As I say often, you can't F your way into a person's heart. It doesn't work that way.
Probably not.
You can't Freud your way into a person's heart. That's what I really meant.
So here's some important qualities for you to consider. We've all heard these. We all know them. We want somebody who's honest and trustworthy and whatnot. I mean, let me. Shall we start with the flaws first, really fast?
Sure.
And then and then the good parts. We'll start with the bad news first.
Sure.
First off, you're listening to Dr. Judy WTF here on UBN Radio Network. You can find us on Stitcher or iTunes. I am your host, Walt Lusk, and of course, we're here with Dr. Judy Rosenberg every Thursday at 8 o'clock. And you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com. Or this is a call-in show, so if you've got a story to tell us, or a question or an issue or a challenge, you want to get on the couch with Dr. Judy, you can call us at area code 323-843-2826.
And by the way, I have a lot of information about relationships on another website called getdatingready.com. And I have a bunch of information about philosophy, dating philosophy, becoming the best of your best, and check it out. There's just a lot on there for single people and even married people who need to renew their vows.
So we're going to go through the flaws really fast here. 1 is addictions. 2 is anger. 3 is feeling like a victim, control freak. has a sexual dysfunction, hasn't grown up, even though I may be growing older or refuse to grow up, emotionally unavailable, hasn't recovered from past relationships. He's got a lot of baggage and holding a torch for that previous relationship. Blow it out fast, and has emotional damage from childhood. So those are the big hurdles that are
Except who
challenges.
doesn't have some of them,
Of
right?
course. All right, we
So,
all have some of them.
So we all have some
We're
of
not
them.
perfect.
It's a matter of degree, and it's a matter of if you have one of them, that doesn't mean that you're not relationship ready necessarily. It's to the matter of the degree, and then you have to understand that it's your responsibility to clean your injuries, because these injuries, these symptoms of drug addiction and avoidant personality has to do with our attachment style from cause. And this is all about the cause, meaning what is the blueprint from your family of origin? When you've been blueprinted to with being ignored, right? Or you've been blueprinted with being overstimulated, or you didn't develop trust in your first few months and years of life with your primary caregiver, who's usually mom, and your secondary caregiver, who's usually dad. And if that territory wasn't safe, then you project that out on your partner. And it's really, really up to us now to take charge of the second part of our lives and be the cause of a better outcome. And I don't know how to do that unless you clean up the past. You can't just say, oh, I don't want to talk about the past. It's just like, let the past be the past. That's nice, but that's not what I see in my practice. What I see is that the past revisits us. And because we are emotional sponges from birth, what happens is we ingest all of the damage and all the light from our parents. We sop it up like a biscuit, and so we digest it, and then we end up manifesting it into horrible core beliefs like I'm not lovable, or I'm stupid, or I'm incompetent, or there are millions of them. And so we need to take responsibility for the fact that if we walk around with that core belief, we're ultimately going to cause chaos within ourselves. And if we're parents, right, that's going to reverberate on our families, our children, and we're going to cause chaos around us. And we're not islands. How we are
certainly aren't.
is affecting. It's the butterfly effect. It's going to affect everyone around you. So we've got to come clean, so to speak, as best as we could.
Well, let the past be the past. Unfortunately, there's a Confucianism I quote often. He or she who sticks head in sand will get butt kicked. So, you know what? If you really want to change and do it in a rapid rate, as you heard from the testimony in the beginning of the show, check out the mind map and you literally change your life. It's quick. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's not painless, but it's pretty quick. I mean, if you've got an issue, it's like if you had a big Band-Aid on yourself, what's the best way to pull it off? Really slow or fast? So you can check it out at www.drjudywtf.com.
And I also want to say
and get a discount
that,
too.
Yeah, get a discount. If you call while
And you mentioned the show.
while we're on this show,
Yeah,
and
mention
you
the show.
mention the show, you get a discount.
Absolutely.
And also for the idea that it goes really fast, it does go really fast, and yet you have your foot on the brake pedal at all times. Some people like to take it a little slower, and that's okay, because what we're doing is we're laying down a cognitive track first. So first you've got to understand what happened, and then once we lay down the cognitive track, we can let those emotions flow along the pathway of the cognitive track so that we can empty out the wounds of the past. And the damage is not in the logical brain. It's not in the left hemisphere at all. It's in the primitive brain. It's in the amygdala. And I just put together a wound activation prevention system. It's a 4-step process. I'll discuss that next time. If you want a copy of it.
Stay tuned. Wound activation system.
Wound activation prevention. So
Well,
if somebody hurts your
prevention.
feelings,
Okay.
right? If somebody hurts your feelings, what do you do? 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you do? Email me. I'll send you a copy of
Yeah,
it.
we can do that. So
Right.
when you dive into these, how to choose a right partner. So we got 6 things we're going to talk about. 1, commitment to personal growth. Again, we've already talked about, if you're married, you're not going to stay the same the whole time.
Right.
So you need to grow, and you want to grow together. Interested in learning how to be a better person and a better partner, aware of emotional baggage and weaknesses, and have personal goals for self-improvement. Now, it sounds tall, but no man is an island, and we need to interact with our partner and other people, and it helps to invest in ourselves a little bit. It pays off huge.
And so also let's talk a little bit about partnerships, because we're not just picking friends, partners. It's not just about picking a spouse, a lover, but it's also about picking, who do you pick as your friend? Are you going to pick a friend who's just really going to be a yes person to you, or are you going to pick a friend who is going to help you to shine a truth light on areas where you need it? Is that friend going to shine the truth light with the intention of hurting you and demeaning, devaluing, and destroying you? Or is that person going to shine the truth light with the intention of helping you become a better person? And I never shine the truth light on anyone unless I have permission to do that, because I'm not everybody's teacher, and nobody's everybody's teacher unless they say, hey, I want the truth.
Well,
tell me the truth.
At that point, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
That's right, and it's intrusive otherwise.
Yes,
You
it is.
don't go around telling people truths, because they're going to go into panel number 5, defense mechanisms, and then they're going to shut you out. So not only are you not going to be able to really get through to them, but chances are they won't want to hear anything else you have to say.
Second is emotional openness. Okay, be aware of his or her feelings. Okay, and have an ability to express those feelings, and share those feelings with your partner. Because this is a partnership. You're with them for, all those meals. You don't want to just sit there and stare at them and get indigestion after dinner.
And the best feeling in the world is when you're really understood. When somebody gets you. Isn't that a fabulous feeling?
Absolutely.
When you know that the other person gets you? And the only way that you really truly
Absolutely.
could be gotten is if you're sharing your vulnerability with the other human being, actively
Absolutely.
telling them, and that makes me feel this way. You're not telling them what to do. You're not telling them what you think. You're not putting demands on them. You're not trying to change their reaction. You're basically giving them feedback about yourself, and then they can decide how they're going to be with how you're feeling. And that doesn't mean they have to jump when you say how high.
No, see, that's the point. You don't want listen to Judy, because this is a real big thing for me in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is being understood. We didn't say they had to agree with you. Okay?
That's
because
correct.
if you all agree on everything,
Mm-hmm.
one of you is totally unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the point is, you can agree to disagree, you can understand where they're coming from, and that's it. As long as you understand and get them, then you're going to be so far ahead of everybody else.
And that's connection.
That is true.
Okay,
connection.
so when I do my work, I'm really trying to boil it down to a very, very simple model, which looks like connect, disconnect. So, when I say blah, blah, blah to you, does that make you feel like I'm connecting with you or disconnecting? When you pick up the cell phone and I'm trying to tell you about an important aspect of my day, that's a disconnect, right? When I'm telling you about my day and you're saying to me, wow, I really want to hear what happened. What happened after that? How do you feel about that? That's a connect, because we can recognize, I think, quite easily when we're connecting and when we're disconnected. We're just not quite aware of it. And if we can give each other information about when we're connecting and when we're disconnecting, then we can all really find pathways to connect.
Yes, we can. Yeah, because we all really do want to connect.
Yes.
And in an emotional, physical,
Yes.
and a mental, and a spiritual level.
And today I had a really, really beautiful experience with a patient of mine, and what I learned out of it is that I too am shy about feeling a deep emotional connection, and that when we get rid of the barriers and all of the defense mechanisms, we stand in this place of real vulnerability. And so because as a human race we don't know how to handle loving, interconnected feelings, it's sort of like we stand in a space of what do we do with these feelings? And it's almost beautiful and overwhelming. And I think as a society, we know what to do when we're angry. We know how to hate each other. We know how to argue. But do we really know how to really be with this beautiful, connected experience with another human being?
Is nothing better.
There's nothing better.
So, and the third one is kind of obvious, and we again have talked about this, is having integrity, right? You want to be honest with themselves. You want to be honest with others and yourself, and don't play games about wants and feelings.
Yeah, I can't speak enough about honesty, integrity, because that goes back to the basic core
Trust.
of what we need, and we're still babies. We still need to respect our stage of development. If we don't pass the trust test, then there's no basis for the relationship. And when we violate that trust, which happens a lot, then we need to self-reflect and self-correct on it. And we need to bridge that gap, which is that peaceful healing dialogue is one way of bridging that gap. So it's not about being perfect and never dropping the ball, because we're always going to drop the ball. It's impossible to stay connected all the time. And sometimes it's important to disconnect, because we don't always want to be intense. Sometimes we need our own space. But it's not a disconnect with the intention of pushing a person away. A disconnect could be with the intention of resting your mind, or just being with your own thoughts, or being with your own hobbies, or just whatever that is. And that's not what I mean by a disconnect from another human being, although some people will interpret that to be so. There may be relationships where a person just needs extra space, and that other party has been so injured by feelings of abandonment that they can't tolerate. And at that point, what they need is a peaceful healing dialogue, so they can renegotiate the space and not blame and shame and judge each other for the space they need or the space they don't need.
And it's a joke we guys always have that women want space. Sometimes, if there's a disagreement.
You mean men want space?
Well,
right?
I think we all want space.
Oh,
but
we
although I did talk about the fact that we want autonomy and you guys want connection.
Okay.
But if there's an argument and somebody needs space, say, hey, you know what? Give me 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Don't chase them. Don't bang down the door. Just say, I need to chill. I need to contemplate my navel. I need some space. Give me a couple of hours, and respect that. So there's a beginning and an end, and it's not going to be forever.
That's right.
And you can reconvene, and maybe at that point you can maybe have a peaceful healing dialogue.
And I love that it's time limited, because oftentimes people will storm out, and part of the manipulation is you don't know when that person's coming back, and it's an awful feeling, especially if you have anxious attachment or some sort of a attachment break in the first few years of life. That can trigger off a whole bunch of very, very unpleasant feelings.
Yes.
However, if the person simply says to you, I don't like what's happening right now. I'm not doing well with it. I'm going to step out for a while, and I'll be back by 10. Yeah. Okay? Or I'll check in with you later.
And honor that. Hey, it's 10 o'clock. I know I expect it. I'm here, blah, blah, blah. I'll be back another hour. Communication is vital, as we all know. I mean, us guys, truly, we are not mind readers as much as you ladies might hope and wish we are. But getting to some more practical things about the 6 issues in this article about how to choose a partner, a right partner, is maturity and responsibility. In other words, do they maintain a clean house? Do they pay the bills on time? How do they handle their finances, right? Because you guys, if you're a couple in some way, you're going to merge. There's practical and business perspectives in terms of finances, right? I'm dealing with a friend whose mom all her life has thought that her husband hid money, and she was convinced he made more money than they had, and in reality, that was all they had. And she's still now spending money like a drunken sailor, and he's passed, and she's on a fixed income. So, you've got to nip this stuff in the bud and have some communication and trust and whatnot early on. Ability to take care of yourself, right?
Yes.
I mean, I remember my father-in-law, I couldn't even go in the tub and he needed his wife to go wash his back all the time. It's pretty crazy. Follow through on promises. Mean what you say and say what you mean. Show up on time. Don't let other people down. And lastly, respect boundaries, as we just talked about. Values, feelings, and time. So that's under maturity and responsibility. We got a couple more.
Yeah, and a big issue with couples is money and boundaries around money.
More divorces that happen over money
I
than
talk
anything,
a lot
almost.
about us money and my money and his money and her money, and if those boundaries are clearly set, then it makes for a really, really great system. And then when you honor that system, then a lot of the problems disappear. For example, there are couples who they actively choose to keep their accounts separate. Sometimes people do this after they've been divorced, maybe even several times, and they don't want to merge that money, and they have children from previous marriages, and they want to keep their money separate. So they choose to do it that way. And it's always nice to have an us fund, even if it's just a small amount of money, just so that there's a sense of, okay, this is the us money, that's the you money, that's the you money. And I think that when people have families, there's usually more of the us money when they share children together, and then there's the me money, and then when people have their own families from other relationships, I oftentimes that us money is just a little smaller, a lot smaller. And it's about negotiation. It's about having the dialogue. It's about understanding how the money is going to affect the person. I had a situation where one person in the relationship got very, very hurt because there were no boundaries set around the me money and the he money, and it was ambiguous. And then there was kind of a sense of relief when we talked about the us money, like, that's going to be our thing. And so
Yeah,
and then you don't
really
have
important.
to go into the little details, because it's just sort of going to clear up a lot of stuff because it's our thing.
Well, along those lines, when I first got married, the one gigantic aha revelation I had was she had her way of doing things, I had my way of doing things, and now we had to figure out our way of doing things. Because, if I squeeze the toothpaste tube at the top and she squeezes it at the bottom, it's going to be a problem. So aside from getting 2 separate tubes of toothpaste, how are we going to handle this?
That's a wonderful way to put it.
A classic
How are we
example
going
was
to?
back in the day there were LPs, and I had a lot of long, 12-inch albums, and in LPs you have the paper jacket that goes into the actual jacket itself, and she would just put the jacket in, and the record would be exposed and would roll out. I said, no, you have to pull the jacket out, put the record in, and then put it up so that it protects the record, doesn't get dusty, and doesn't roll out. So there was her way, there was my way, and now we had to figure out our way as an example. And I think that if a lot of folks and couples realize, okay, we're a couple, we're one, we're a unit.
Yes.
Okay, how are we going to do this? It doesn't matter whether it's your way or my way. We need to agree that it's our way.
But it's back to that notion of the couple bubble.
And it's us.
Right, the couple bubble.
Couple bubble.
Then when we become a we, we're
From Wired for Love.
responsible. Right, we're responsible for the well-being of that other person. Of course, they're also responsible for their own well-being, but we're also we have a grand impact on that other human being. So we have to learn them. They have to learn us, and we have to learn how to interconnect with each other. One other thing that I wanted to mention, you were talking about maturity. I really notice in my practice is that as people's mental health gets better, they start taking pride in their appearance. They become
look
more
better.
beautiful. They're walking into my office and they're losing weight and they're starting to exercise, and they start talking about how their house is looking better. I had a patient of mine who revamped his bathroom with amazing colors of towels and candles, and I'm always wowed by it because really how we are on the inside is going to be mirrored by what we reflect on the outside.
Well, that's funny you should say that, Dr. Judy, because the fifth thing of 6, we have to go these pretty quickly, is have high self-esteem, which of course is easier said than done. Take pride in yourself without being arrogant. Take care of your health, living environment, car, and possessions. So if you've got a little higher self-esteem, a little more, up in it, you're going to be, it's going to show. And don't allow other people to mistreat you.
And when you really dismantle your core belief and you get your boundaries in place and you become very knowledgeable of who to let in and who not to let in, that just starts taking care of itself.
Yeah, it sure does. And lastly is positive attitude towards life, okay? Focus on solutions instead of problems. I always hate the word problem. I always call it a challenge. We've got a challenge, right? It's just putting in a little different perspective. Turn obstacles into opportunities. I met a client today that their son turned out was an older couple. He was an alcoholic, and there was an incident where he got it was a really stupid one, but he got drunk driving, and as a result, he lost his job. Well, as a result of him losing his job, he had to get another job, which was a better job than he liked, and he, through that, quit drinking. And as a result of that, he is a new person. He doesn't hang around his old friends. He doesn't, like July 4th, he realized it was a bad situation, so he didn't hang around him. And everybody keeps waiting for the shoe to drop, but he made the decision to change from an event. And if you look at the event on the onset, it's a complete disaster. But in retrospect, of course, it was the best thing for him. An obstacle can be an opportunity, and it's the same when you look at it in Chinese. It just depends on how
I like to call it a curse by design. I think I heard that phrase by reading M. Scott Peck, one of my favorite authors.
Road Less Traveled.
Yes, and People of the Lie, another great book. And really, truly, we sometimes have to hit bottom, or we do hit bottom, and then we get to find out that we're really made of a lot more than we think we're made of. And sometimes these curse by designs can be very inspirational.
Yes. Yep. And sometimes that's just, it's a giant wake-up call.
Yes.
And lastly, of course, see good in people and situations, right? I mean, nothing's perfect, but, we is it half empty or half full, right?
Right. And when we're being the cause, right, then what we're seeing also is we're seeing the best within ourselves, and we're taking a look at our own light, because I know I talk a lot about the darkness and our infiltrated past, but it's amazing that when you start tapping into your talents and your passions, the amount of light within you, and that actually can help push out that darkness as you're processing the darkness. What's going to push it really out is where you're going, not where you've been, because you've got to have the carrot in front of you.
And remember, it's not how you start that matters; it's how you finish. If you're sitting there driving a car, and you're constantly focusing on the rearview mirror, you're inevitably going to crash. So you got to look forward. You got to realize, hey, I got a future ahead of me. How's it going to end? Because that's what matters the most. And again, take your time. All this stuff didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to get fixed overnight, even though we all want to live in a microwave society and have it all done immediately. So that's pretty much our show on how to pick and choose a partner. And we're now going to shrink our tune. And if you really want to comment or some questions, you want our peaceful healing dialogue, send us to info@drjudywtf.com. And also there is a link you can check out the Mindmap system in the program that Dr. Judy's developed. She definitely can do it over the phone, as you heard from the testimonial. Mind your map your mind, and it'll change your life. And with that, we're going to do the song, and it's one was by request, and it's by Amy Mann. It's called Wise Up. So we're going to shrink this tune. I'm going to read some of the stanzas and the words, and we're going to figure it out here. So, just give up. It's not what you thought. When you first began it, you got what you want. Now you can hardly stand it, though. But now you know it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop till you wise up.
So when I read this in the context of what we've been talking about tonight, wising up, choosing the right partner, so, so just give up, I think was kind of like said with sarcasm. So why don't you just give up? It's not what you thought. Sometimes we enter into a relationship and the person's, wow, they're just not perfect. So when you first began it, you got what you wanted. Let's say you got what you wanted initially because the person was trying to land the deal, right? And now you find that there are things about the person that you could hardly stand. And so, it's the behavior is not going to stop until you really communicate about it. And you start understanding on deeper levels and accepting the person on deeper levels and really wise up to the fact that a relationship isn't some kind of an ideal bubble. It's two living people who have flaws and light and darkness, and we have to wise up and understand each other.
You're sure there's a cure, and you finally found it. You think one drink will shrink till you're underground and living down, but it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop till you wise up.
So you're sure there's a cure, and you have finally found it. Well, what cure are we talking about? Are we talking about filling the hole in the soul? You think one drink will shrink you till you're underground? In other words, that drink is going to ease the pain? Well, that's not where we want to go here. We want to go into not repeating patterns, but really wising up and understanding the depth of what's hurting us so that we can transmute it and we can paradigm shift out of it.
Absolutely. And the mind map does that incredibly well. Prepare a list for what you need before you sign away the deed, because it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop till you wise up.
Today I was talking about our need with a patient. Patient said to me, I've been looking for what I want, but now I understand that I have to look for what I need. Prepare a list for what you need. I think what we really need is love, interconnection, respect, trust. What we might want is a hard body. What we might want is a very rich partner. What we might want is a lot of things. But prepare a list for what you really need, because it's not going to stop. These cycles of choices and throwaway relationships, for example, are not going to stop till we wise up and really understand that having a significant relationship is really about really being honest with what we need.
What's interesting along those lines, if I can just expand that, is I learned a long time ago a phrase: wish, want, need, God. Mm-hmm. We can wish for something,
yes,
but obviously wishing for it isn't going to make it happen. And as Dr. Judy says, I want something. Well, just because you want it doesn't mean you're going to get it. But if you need it, mm-hmm, you're going to get it. It's like, for example, you're having some money challenges and, you need new tires. And it's like, you know what? I want tires, but I just can't get them right now. And then you have a flat tire, right? And you have no spare. Now you're past the wishing and the wanting, and you need a tire because otherwise you can't get anywhere and you're stuck. So that now is a need. And I think chances are you'll find the money and you'll get your tire.
And I think you boiled it down to our basic needs. We have to have trust. We have to have integrity, maturity, and a general sense of health.
Mm-hmm. I have also, which we didn't get to, and we might do this in another show, 51 tips on how to pick a partner for a lasting relationship. It's really short. If you want a copy of it, just write us at info@drjudywtf.com. And that's it. We're out of time. We're going to play the song. Okay. Again, this has been Dr. Judy WTF here on UBN Radio. And I am your host, as always, Walt Luskin, Dr. Judy Rosenberg. And we'll be back again next week. Thanks for tuning in and listening. And so now we're going to be playing Wise Up by Amy Mann.